How avoidants miss the person who truly loves them. Have you ever wondered if the avoidant you loved deeply ever thinks about you? Most people assume that once they leave, they move on without a second thought, but the truth is far more complicated than most realize. Today we're going to explore the hidden side of this, how they keep someone in their mind, how they think about them silently, and how, despite their absence, the memories of that person remain alive within them. It's not an ordinary memory, it's a quiet hidden process that often goes unseen, and that they themselves may never fully admit. First, it's important to understand that avoidants don't experience love in the usual way. They crave connection, but only at a safe distance. When someone gets too close, emotionally, spiritually, or physically, their nervous system can trigger fear. Love and intimacy can feel dangerous to them, even when they want it deeply. That's why the person who loved them the most is often the one they distance themselves from, yet keep returning to in thought. It's never about a lack of care, it's about fear of vulnerability, dependency, and losing control over their own emotions. Avoidants often seek relationships that feel safe, calm, and predictable, partnerships that don't challenge their emotional walls. From the outside it may appear peaceful and stable, but deep down they notice the difference. They think about the person who truly understood them, and those thoughts quietly grow within them as a subtle longing and reflection. In this video, we'll look at the hidden subtle ways avoidants remember someone, ways that are invisible, easily misunderstood, yet deeply significant. By the end you'll understand how they keep someone in their mind, why they maintain distance outwardly, and why the person they left behind lingers in their thoughts in a way no one else can. Keep watching, you'll want to hear every detail. First thing, they remember the small things. Avoidants might seem distant, cold, or completely detached on the outside. They may not text back, call, or reach out, and it can make you feel like they've forgotten everything. But the truth is far more subtle, and far more real. One of the quietest ways they miss someone is by remembering the small, seemingly insignificant details. These are the moments that most people would overlook, but for an avoidant these details are quietly imprinted in their mind. Think about the way you laughed at something silly, the particular phrases or words you often used, or the gentle ways you comforted them when they felt insecure or overwhelmed. They carry these memories silently, tucked away in corners of their mind, even if they never speak about them or show it outwardly. It's not the grand gestures they hold on to, it's the subtle personal things that reminded them of your presence, your attention, and your care. This type of remembrance is almost invisible. You wouldn't know it from their actions because avoidants often feel uncomfortable expressing emotion directly. But internally those tiny details resurface in fleeting moments, when they hear a phrase that reminds them of you, when they see a familiar gesture, or when a quiet memory suddenly strikes in the middle of their day. It's like your presence lingers in their inner world, even when they appear to be fully moved on. And here's the important part, remembering the small things isn't just nostalgia, it's a signal of emotional impact. It shows that, in a way, you reached a part of them that no one else could. They might push themselves to focus elsewhere or fill their days with distractions, but those small memories quietly shape their internal emotional landscape. They miss you in ways they can't articulate, through recollection, through reflection, and through an almost subconscious appreciation of who you were in their life. So while they might seem indifferent, these tiny specific memories are the first indication of how deeply they actually feel your absence. It's subtle, almost undetectable, but it's a real and persistent form of remembrance. And understanding this helps explain why avoidants often linger in thought long after they've left inaction. These small details are the quiet threads that tie them to someone they truly cared about, keeping you alive in their mind even when their behavior suggests otherwise. Second thing, they compare others to you. One of the clearest and most revealing ways avoidants show that they miss someone is through comparison. This often goes unnoticed because on the surface, they may seem fully engaged in new relationships or appear calm and unbothered. They might be with someone who seems easygoing, predictable, or emotionally steady, but deep down they are constantly comparing this person to the one they left behind. This comparison isn't superficial, it's a quiet internal process that brings memories of you to the forefront repeatedly. They recognize what you offered: depth, emotional honesty, and a genuine connection that very few people can provide. These are the qualities that made your relationship unique, and internally they realize that no one else reaches that same level. For avoidants, This comparison is often subconscious. They rarely voice it, but with each new interaction or relationship, they measure how the other person stacks up against the standards set by you. They notice which traits remind them of you, and which fail to provide the comfort, understanding, or emotional closeness you once did. This silent evaluation is a way their mind keeps returning to you, acknowledging that the connection you shared was rare and meaningful. Interestingly, this comparison often stirs subtle restlessness or unease within them. Even if they appear happy or distant in their current situation, internally, they sense that no one else reaches the emotional depth you brought into their life. These thoughts may surface unexpectedly through fleeting memories, small reminders, or quiet moments of reflection, revealing the truth they rarely admit outwardly. This process of comparing others to you acts as a silent form of remembrance. It shows that they truly hold on to the significance of what you brought to their life. It's not just a passing thought, it's an internal benchmark that informs how they perceive and engage with new relationships. They carry your presence, consciously or unconsciously, and measure others against the connection you had, often without anyone else noticing. So even if it seems like they have moved on, remember that they are mentally and emotionally comparing others to you. It's a quiet, powerful way of showing that they haven't forgotten you, and that your impact lingers in their mind, quietly shaping how they see love, connection, and emotional honesty. Third thing, they revisit the emotional impact you had. Even when avoidants seem fully engaged in life or new routines, one of the less obvious ways they miss someone is by mentally revisiting the emotional impact that person had on them. This isn't about fantasizing about getting back together, nor is it about regret in the usual sense. It's an internal, subtle reflection, a way for them to process the intensity of connection they once experienced, the depth of honesty, and the feelings that they rarely encounter elsewhere. In quiet moments, a thought or memory might unexpectedly surface, a conversation that changed their perspective, a moment when they felt truly seen, or a time when your presence grounded them in a way they had never experienced. These reflections are usually private, silent, and fleeting, but they carry immense emotional weight. Avoidants rarely voice this process. It's something that unfolds internally, often without conscious control. What makes this reflection unique is that it allows them to engage with a part of themselves they usually avoid, vulnerability. While they struggle to express emotions outwardly, internally they replay and reconsider the authenticity, empathy, and understanding you brought into their life. Even if they push others away or immerse themselves in routine, this inner dialogue quietly reminds them of the rare emotional connection they experienced with you. This revisiting is also a way of measuring emotional truth. They notice how different your presence felt compared to anyone else they've encountered since. The way you listened, responded, or simply existed in a space of honesty leaves an imprint that they return to mentally, again and again. It's not conscious longing in the dramatic sense, it's an internal calibration of what real connection felt like, and a subtle acknowledgement that few experiences since have matched it. In essence, this is a private, reflective form of missing someone. Avoidants carry it silently, without outward expression, yet it profoundly shapes how they process relationships, intimacy, and emotional depth. This quiet reflection ensures that the person they truly loved remains in their inner world, not as a fantasy or comparison, but as a measure of the emotional truth they rarely allow themselves to feel with anyone else. Fourth thing, they test boundaries in small ways. One of the more subtle and revealing ways avoidants show that they miss someone is through testing boundaries in small, almost imperceptible ways. These actions aren't grand gestures, and they're rarely straightforward declarations of emotion. Instead, they are quiet signals, a way to check the waters, gauge reactions, and see if a connection still exists, even if it can't be fully expressed. You might notice it as a text message after weeks of silence, a casual comment on a social media post, or a sudden, seemingly random check-in. On the surface, it can appear inconsequential, or even accidental, but for an avoidant, these small interactions carry weight. They are carefully measured attempts to feel a link without exposing themselves to the vulnerability or intensity of full emotional engagement. This testing isn't always about love in the traditional sense. It's about curiosity, about revisiting a connection that left an impression they can't entirely ignore. It's an inner tug of war, wanting to reach out, to see the person again, yet fearing the closeness that might follow. These tiny boundary tests allow them to stay connected without the risks that intimacy brings. Often, these gestures are sporadic and unpredictable. That unpredictability is not lack of care, it's fear manifesting as caution. By reaching out in small, controlled ways, they can observe how much of themselves they can reveal safely. Every brief interaction, every minor acknowledgement, is a window into the part of them that still values your presence and the connection you shared. Importantly, these subtle tests reveal that the connection hasn't disappeared. Even when they seem distant, emotionally guarded, or fully moved on, the fact that they take these small steps shows that they are still mentally and emotionally engaged in a measured way. It's a way for them to process longing without confronting the vulnerability that scares them. In essence, testing boundaries in small ways is a quiet, almost invisible expression of missing someone. It demonstrates that despite their avoidance, the person they left behind continues to occupy a space in their inner world. These small gestures act as signals, markers of an emotional presence that hasn't faded, even when outward behavior suggests otherwise. Understanding this subtle form of connection helps make sense of why avoidants sometimes appear distant yet still reach back, in the smallest ways, toward the people who truly impacted them. As we've explored, avoidants may seem distant or disconnected, but their mind quietly holds on to the people who touched them deeply. These patterns, the small memories, subtle comparisons, internal reflections, and boundary tests, show us that love doesn't always wear a visible form. Sometimes it lives quietly, hidden beneath layers of fear, caution, and self-protection. The lesson here isn't to chase someone who distances themselves, or to wait for recognition that may never come. Instead, it's to understand the nature of human attachment and emotional complexity. Avoidants aren't incapable of feeling, they simply engage with love in ways that are often private and internal. Recognizing this can help you release guilt, self-doubt, or confusion about what went wrong. It's also a reminder of the value of your own emotional depth. If you've ever been the person someone couldn't fully stay with, it doesn't mean your love was lacking. On the contrary, your ability to connect, empathize, and care deeply is a strength. Some people are unable to meet that depth, and that reflects their limitations, not yours. Use this insight to focus on yourself, your growth, and the connections that are mutual and fulfilling. Appreciate that love can exist in many forms, some expressed outwardly, some carried quietly, and not every connection is meant to last in the way we imagine. Ultimately, understanding how avoidants hold on to people mentally and emotionally can give you perspective, closure, and clarity. It allows you to honor your own heart while letting go of attachment to someone who couldn't fully meet you. The person who truly values you will meet you halfway, without fear or hesitation. So carry this awareness forward, love deeply, but never at the expense of your own peace. Recognize your worth, and let your energy flow toward those who can match your emotional openness. That is the truest path to fulfillment in relationships and in life.